This episode of Capes and Lunatics is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. Get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
Me hearties and welcome once again to Full Stream Ahead. I be your captain, Charlie, the Professor Esser. And with me as always is me first mate and skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Ah, I love you, Mozz. Always glad to have you back. Tonight's episode of The Boys, Season 2, Episode 3, Over the Hill with the Swords of 1,000 Men. The boys take to the high seas to safeguard their prisoner. Homelander plays house, then pushes Ryan over the edge. Starlight is forced to make an impossible choice. Stormfront reveals her true character. Stephen Boyum, that's our director this week. Craig Rosenberg and Eric Kripke get our written by and developed by credits. Eric Kripke gets the developed by credits. Garth Ennis and Derek Robertson get our comic books by credit. Yeah, I got into a whole thing on Facebook about Eric Kripke being the creator of The Boys, and I said he's not the creator of The Boys because he is the developer. He is the creator of The Boys TV show. Yes, but he is not the creator of The Boys. That's Garth Ennis. It's because, for those who don't know, at the time of this recording, once again, it's in the media how, Eric Kripke has said, the MCU, it wants people to be, waiting for a superhero, yada, 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 which, of course, most people who are fans of the MCU will say, no, that's not what the MCU tells us. But more to the point, in the article I was specifically referencing, they reference Kripke as the creator of The Boys, and he's not the creator of The Boys, he's the developer of The Boys. Although, as was pointed out in the comments, which I do know is that creator is actually a Hollywood term. He is the creator of The Boys TV show, because it is its own existence, very different from the books. And as I pointed out to that person, that Garth Ennis would likely agree with Eric Kripke that superheroes are bad, because Garth Ennis, not a fan. But getting back to the story itself.
But, I don't think anybody identifies with the bystanders. That's not the point of the story. I think the question itself is flawed. I don't think that's what, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is about at all. We all identify with the heroes. There's no separation there. Nobody identifies with the bystanders. So the idea is through their stories, we're able to explore how we ourselves would react in situations where we would have to consider the same kind of dynamics, choices that would hurt friends, choices that would hurt other people, and those are the opportunities we get to have conversations with our friends about what we would do in these situations, and that's the purpose they serve. And to make it about whether or not we're waiting for a savior to come save us, I don't think it's about that at all. I think that's the wrong way of looking at it.
Well, exactly, and that's my take too. It's I don't think that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is, and we're talking about The Boys, but yeah, and granted, and this is one of the things I will point out, is that The Boys is very much a pastiche of DC characters, which are Golden Age characters for the most part, who are all much more godlike in their creation. And so in the sense of that over-reliance on the gods, as it were, I do see that point. And that is the point, is that, if you're waiting for the gods, as the old saying goes, God helps those who helps themselves. You have to be willing to meet God halfway.
Right.
God may care and God may be there to save you, but the fact of the matter is he's going to send 2 boats and a helicopter first. And, just waiting for the hand of God to reach down, that's a fool's errand.
Are you worthy of it yet, though? It's like, hey.
Well, it's the idea that the power
you make yourself worthy by trying.
Well, exactly. The idea is that the power is within you all along. And it's like you look at every grand horror that we face, from fascism to global warming. And at no time is the most powerful finger of magic not your own finger. At no time is it not your responsibility to take care of these things. And yes, it's easy to see ourselves as the microbe in the sea, but as Aquaman once showed us, that 1 billion microbes in swamp water could create a tidal wave and could smash out the thing he was capturing at the time. And we'll get to this a bit that is this episode where we get the Deep's return.
Oh, yes, indeed.
And, oh, man, I love the Deep. I hate how his story kind of, starts grand and then collapses. But it does feed into my fan theory of what I want to see of the Deep in Season 3. Because we are getting a Season 3. This ain't HBO. This is Amazon. They don't make these things just to do one and done seasons.
Right.
They're here for the long haul. They're like, well, we will play in this universe until you get sick of it. We are not rushing to the exits. That's DC. That's HBO's problem right now is they create amazing series, but they're all just based on the idea. Well, we're just going to do one season of this, and then we're done. It's like, well, that's great, except let's monetize this a bit. And
although I don't mind it, it allows them to tell a complete story without being forced to open narrative threads that they don't know how to close, and then the show suffers for it.
Well, and while I agree with that as an artistic concept, when you're talking about episodic storytelling, there is no end. There is no. That's the thing. It's like everything that happened. There's another day, and then we wake up tomorrow. No matter how drunk I get tonight,
right?
Someone's gonna wake up tomorrow.
I know, but are all those stories worth telling? Sure, they'll wake up, but
they might not be. Well, it's up to the writer to make the story worth telling.
Right. No, I just saw Escape at Dannemora. It's a Showtime show. It's on Hulu. But man, it's amazing. Stephen King tweeted about it, said it was the best new thing on TV, so I had to check it out. And it is really, really good. It's got Benicio del Toro and Paul Dano. It's just a prison escape story, 8 episodes long, and that's all it needed to be. But in 2 days, I sat down and watched an 8-hour movie about this prison escape, and it was incredible. So I'm okay with just one season special stories.
Oh yeah, and to be fair, the idea of the prison escape story, that's a 1-season story. Because, generally speaking, we don't want to see what happens next season when they get caught again and get sent back to the prison.
Right.
And that's essentially the idea, is that, when you open up a doorway in a story that says, and now the world changed forever, and we're not going to talk to you about that, it's, in its own way, kind of a cop-out. It's its own Deus Ex Machina, where you have essentially said, yeah, we ended the story, everything changed, and now we're not going to tell you what happens next because that's for you, the fans, to decide.
Yeah, but then you turn it into a soap opera, and then you're caught with the tropes of that, where, the stories, you run out of stuff to talk about, so they have to make the most mundane things interesting or come up with the wildest and most outlandish plots that are completely unbelievable.
Well, yeah, and that is true. That is the counter argument, So, but the fact of the matter is, I think what The Boys does well, what comic books in general do well, is they don't have a real endpoint when you think about it.
No, that's a great point. Marvel has proven the other side of that argument abundantly well.
Well, exactly. It's like, okay, so Cap's, Tony Stark's dead, Cap's old. Okay, so what are we going to do tomorrow? Because it's not like, well, we think that with Thanos we vanquished all threats that will ever exist. Right. No, it's like we all know that Galactus is out there.
Yeah.
We all know the Fantastic Four exists. We all know there's other stories going on. We already know, it's like even if we want to go a grimdark route, everyone knows that, you can actually make superheroes in a lab if you wanna. And, we can expose people to gamma radiation. We can do these things and make the world a more interesting place. Or the counter argument is we can start oppressing people who are trying to do that and have this entire boys style thing where it's like, oh my gosh, Compound V's out in the world now. We have to have an army ready to stop these people before anyone gets superpowers, because it always ends poorly. And then you got your whole Second Amendment people saying, I got my right to my Compound V. Compound V is my right. That's season 3. Let me tell you right now, that is season 3. Compound V is my right.
Yeah, keep your government hands off my Compound V.
Exactly. So I don't know anything about what season 3 is. That is one of the plot thread is people start saying, well, we know Compound V exists. And people are going to say, no, you don't understand. Like, sometimes they give you superpowers. Sometimes it turns you into a horrifying freak of nature, and then you implode yourself. It's like, I'll take that risk,
I'm sure there's going to be black market knockoff Compound V.
Oh, they're already creating it, my friend. They already creating it. It's. They even make a mention in this episode.
Oh, do they?
They make a statement about Pfizer. They don't say. I don't remember exactly what Pfizer says, but they say, Pfizer's doing this. Pfizer's. Which actually is the point that Pfizer is like, we knew it. We knew. We've been working on this too. We just ain't figured it out yet. Now, okay. Now it's out there. Now we know what to look for. And once we start looking for it, maybe we find it. So, but that is one of the things of this episode. So in this episode, we have, of course, it opens with a nice little bit by Billy Joel. Because I do love Billy Joel. And actually it's interesting because he starts in that video, because we start with the Billy Joel music video, and I forget the song, but it starts with him playing on his harmonica the first couple lines of Piano Man. Which was the song parodied by Weird Al Yankovic to be Spin Me a Web, Mr. Spider-Man. So for what it's worth, there's still a superhero connection in that. I love their use of Billy Joel music in this episode, especially on the road trip. Because we do get the road trip this episode. No, that's next episode. Okay, so next episode we get the road trip. Billy Joel is central to this season, kids. So go and pick up on your back catalog of Billy Joel, because, the voice from Jersey. All the voices from Jersey. Not so much Bon Jovi, but definitely Billy Joel is in this. But yeah, so it opens up with this idea of this guy being on a bridge, and then Billy Joel magically shows up and plays his song. And again, this getting back to that original idea of waiting for the hero. The idea that, you're on the bridge, you're about to throw yourself off. Well, here's Billy Joel. And he's going to be the one to save you. He's going to be the one to talk to you. And in this, what's his name? It's not Dewey. It's Huey. Huey. I forget which of the triplets it was. Huey is... By the way, check out Darkwing Duck on Disney XD. It's awesome. They did the 1-hour movie premiere of it recently, and I believe they're spinning it off, which I'm going to be live tweeting, which I'll talk about later. But I could be wrong, but that's my hope and thought and belief. But in this moment, stepping back a bit, Huey is sort of telling Starlight via a bunch of not drunk dials, but panic dials to her voicemail that she is his second wind. She is who he's waiting for to save him in the sense that he needs someone to reach out to him.
Yeah, it's just so dangerous and so haphazard to just be leaving messages like that after they're trying. It's so stupid. I was really surprised that he would be, just the frivolous nature of those messages. They're trying to not be tracked, or I don't know. It just seems so not careful.
That is the false muscles of the burner phone.
Yeah.
They're both assuming, and to be fair, like Starlight's assuming that too. And it's sort of like when you do the incognito mode to go to the porn site or some other thing. You put on the incognito mode, and it's like that doesn't actually hide you from people. It just hides you from this one browser history. So that she has a burner phone that he's calling. But she has that burner phone on her person or in her room, and then if someone can break into it, they get all the information, and it's ridiculous. But the fact of the matter is that at the same time, they're not thinking of that. They're thinking of their adventure. They're thinking of being superheroes, which is something I think we get to next episode. With Starlight realizing that it isn't one thing. There's not one, I stabbed the villain in the heart, and now the villain is dead, and now we are heroes. It's like, no, this is going to be a progressive thing. In this episode, we do get the revelation, because Starlight has revealed to the world that, obviously, Compound V exists. People are getting the Compound V. That's what created the super terrorists. That's what created all the superheroes. And we get a scene in this, it's very brief, of Black Noir as the news is playing, weeping. Or at least it looks like he's weeping. He might also be laughing because we don't know. Right.
If he is weeping, he's weeping for the same reason Starlight would have been weeping. Like, I can't believe this is where I come from. I thought I was special. I thought I had some, divine right to this, or.
Well, I mean, it's a different. No, Starlight's weeping because she's happy that this news is finally out there.
Oh, no. What I mean is the way she felt when she found out that she was made from Compound V and that, God didn't give her these powers.
Oh, yeah. So it's her own darkness and sorrow about it.
Right, and then if he was weeping, that's what he was feeling.
Yeah, see me, and I'm reading way too much into it.
Because
I think Black Noir is Deadpool.
Mm-hmm.
I think much like Deadpool, he knows his life is fictional. This is all a joke. And now it's like, it's not even that. I was cursed by the gods for a fictional story. I was cursed by rich men in my real story. That even in the story, I'm a patsy. I just thought I was a patsy for the entertainment. But in this reality, no, they actually wrote it so that actually I'm just a schmuck in my own reality.
So in a way, it's like any sort of sense that he had that he was betraying his, divine obligation to become, a quote unquote. Do you think he thinks he's a bad guy,
or do you think he's not a bad guy? I actually think. Well, that's my thing. My theory is that Black Noir is their Deadpool, but they did a thing that Fabian Netziez has mentioned, which is this idea that he could have written Deadpool as a silent ninja, like Snake Eyes, instead of a talkative ninja, and they're doing the exact same character, but they're making him silent. And the idea is that all that stuff in his head is still going on in his head, and he knows in its own way, it's own psychosis. There was I wrote this little play years ago when I fancied myself a writer, and there was a character that I loved called Fred Payne, and Fred Payne was a character who knew he was fictional, which isn't actually. He knew he was fictional, and there's actually a mental illness where people think they're fictional. So it's like it actually does track that people may think they're fictional. But in that, he makes this point when he's talking to the audience in one of the scenes. He says, you are laughing because I'm fictional, but you don't know. Right now, I might go walk past you to the back of this theater right now. I'll sit on the edge of that stage, and I'll talk to those people, and all you will be fictional. And then he comes back and says, okay, there was no one back there. I guess I'm only as real as you people. But it's just this idea that, yeah, I'm only as real as you. That's where my fifth wall is. I can break this fourth wall that other people can't, but I can't break that fifth wall beyond us. But that doesn't mean, because I'm already breaking this fourth wall, that there's not a fifth wall beyond us. Deadpool has brought that up a few times too, as has Howard the Duck when he's dealt with Gwenpool, which is like, I know you think we're fictional, but we're real to us. And
right, but
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, because you're interrupting me, and I'm ranting.
Sorry. So, no, but it's an interesting thing to me. Like, I immediately, in my head, assumed that he knew he was the bad guy, and that they know the enterprise that they're involved in. People higher up, people that are closer, or have Homelander's confidence. Homelander doesn't believe he's a good guy. Homelander simply believes he's a mean to an end for this corporation, or he appreciates the image, he appreciates everything that the image brings, the love and the adoration, but I don't believe that he thinks he's a good guy at all. I think he knows he's a bad guy, and I think Black Noir knows that he's on the side of the bad guys, and if he's crying for the reason that you state, then I imagine that he must have felt like, if he was given these powers, shouldn't he be using them for good? But he's using them for bad. So, screw it. I'm selling myself out because everybody sells themselves out, and he feels bad about it. But now, if he feels that, they're the ones that gave him the power to begin with, then it was never in his control, that he didn't make a bad choice by, betraying what he should have done with these God-given powers or what have you, but that he was designed for this purpose, so he doesn't have to feel bad about it anymore. And maybe that's why he might have been laughing, because he's more liberated by this.
See, I would take a different stance. I think that Black Noir sees himself. I do think he sees himself as a hero.
Interesting.
In the same way that Deadpool thinks of himself as a hero.
But Deadpool actually is a hero.
Well, no, he murders people.
I know, but he does it for the right purpose. He does it for a cause.
Well, he assumes it's the right purpose.
Right, but at least he believes it's the right cause.
Well, at the moment, and to be fair with Deadpool, sometimes the right cause is, these people I'm killing aren't very nice people either, and someone's paying me money. And to his perspective, I think as an example, when you think about how Homelander approaches things, and for what it's worth, Homelander thinks he's the hero too.
Yeah, I disagree. I see it very differently. I don't think he sees himself as a good guy. But sorry, go ahead.
No. Well, good is irrelevant to Homelander. He's Homelander. He is the hero. This, for what it's worth, that's why he is very insistent on the terms hero and villain.
Well, but that's the marketing end of it, I think, to him.
It's the marketing. Well, it's the marketing end of it, but it's also the idea of fictional roles. There are no villains. That's the thing. It's like, as people will say, one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter. When you say someone is a terrorist, you actually give them a perspective of some moral ambiguity. Where it's like, yes,
you're creating the villains that you are pretending to be fighting. So you must believe that you're not on the good side.
Well, except that he thinks that he is on the good side because he is Homelander. He is He is the embodiment of the idea that might makes right. And the idea that because he is mighty...
Yeah, but just because there's a phrase about it might makes winners. Might doesn't make right. Might makes winners.
Well, if you want to get into deep philosophical discussions, but I don't know how often Homelander goes into deep philosophical discussions. But
these are like the internal subliminal heuristics that are at play when he decides to do things and doesn't understand why he does them and then justifies them. But these are the things on the inside that are compelling him to do the things that he does.
Well, yes. I mean, I'm not going to disagree with. I'm not going to so much disagree with what you said as I'm going to agree with what I already said.
I'm not asking you to.
No, and I understand that. What I'm saying is, I think that Homelander, in his narcissistic, what's it called, cluster B, hon? Yes, cluster B personality. He's his narcissistic type A, cluster B personality. He is effectively saying, what I do is right because I am right. And anyone who questions that is simply wrong. And
or they don't have the right to, whether it's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. They don't have the right to question me because I'm stronger.
Exactly.
Right. So I mean, like, he knows that he's not on the side of good. If good is irrelevant to him, his own assertion of power is the only thing that's important. Right?
Exactly. And that is his take, is he is the powerful being. And he only respects other powers. And I think... Right. Okay, so let's jump back a bit to get to the actual story, because we've done about half this show talking about that. Doesn't even happen, but it's a great show. I hope people are enjoying it. Jumping back, because for what it's worth, there's not that much that goes on for the whole part, except that Compound V is exposed. It's on CNN. People have different reactions to it.
Kimiko's brother is under the boys' control, and they're looking to offload him off to the FBI.
The CIA.
Right, excuse me, the CIA.
Yes, there's differences.
Absolutely.
What I will say that is interesting in this is it's Frenchie who F's up. That it's never Huey. That everyone, looks down on Huey, but it's not Huey who causes the problems in any of this. It actually is Butcher who steals the boat and then doesn't go to international waters.
Right.
When we think about everything that went wrong here, it's that Butcher stayed in New York territorial waters instead of heading out to international waters. Now, granted, I think you can argue that, the cell phone wouldn't have reception, yada, 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 but he probably could have worked that out. He could have, darted back and darted in, darted back and darted in. He could have found the space to be. And as it was, he was very close to international water. He was very close to U.S. waters at the time because, they're coming at him with helicopters. And they're specifically NYPD helicopters, which means he is still within the Staten Island area. So he is well within. Now, granted, that area does have a lot of, because Long Island goes out so far and Staten Island goes out so far, there is so much of New York claimed waters that it might have been harder. But I just think that these were all things that showed the short-sightedness of Butcher. Likewise, the short-sightedness of Frenchie, when again his relationship to Kimiko has him leave what is essentially a Red Bull on the table. Although, again, as we said, because Kimiko's brother needs to have a finger free to use his powers, had his fingers stayed completely wrapped up, he would have been powerless. But because he gets one of his fingers free, he can use his powers.
So did the can help him get his finger free? Or was his finger always free?
No. He rubbed the duct tape against the chain they had him on.
Right. So really didn't matter if he left the can. If he didn't, he would have used his finger to make something else a weapon, right?
Yeah, what he would have eventually. Yeah, I mean, honestly, yes, probably he would have gotten himself free, but it was just, it was
a stupid move on Frenchie's part for sure.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It comes down to the fact that no one's really watching the super terrorist.
I mean, but how could you?
No one's trying. And here's the real thing. Here's the real thing of it. Had Huey interacted with a super terrorist as a human being, he probably could have broke him. Because when you actually go back and look at interrogations, like historical interrogations, the whole waterboarding and nonsense like that is fast, but it is ineffective. What is actually effective is sitting down with someone in the same way that Kimiko did,
right, and
talk to them. And if Huey had sat down and talked to him, the problem with Frenchie is that, as we see next episode, Frenchie's got his own agenda. If someone had sat down with him and just talked to him as a human being, instead of seeing him as Butcher sees him, as just a commodity to be transferred, then you might actually get through to the next level. You might actually get him to where he needs to be. But they didn't, and so they didn't. And so in that way...
the way Butcher's making decisions right now, everything depends. Everything he's doing now is for the sake of trying to get to his wife. So he's probably not thinking about very much else.
Which is true. That is 100% true. It is also ineffective.
Yeah.
So it's this idea that if he wants to get to his wife, the way you get to your wife is you actually solve this problem.
Right.
You actually move our story forward, and we figure out what's going on, because we already know. Essentially, the issue is that Butcher has so much hatred for Soups that he cannot move forward with them. He cannot imagine Soups as human beings, which is exactly the opposite of what the Soups. What's the exact same idea that the Soups often have. They don't see humans as humans. Butcher doesn't see Soups as human. It is your classic Magneto versus Reverend Stryker kind of scenario. One person thinks that the person with powers is the monster. The person with powers thinks the person without powers is a monster.
Right.
And
the thing is, we all have the capacity to be monsters.
Well, exactly, because we're all freaking humans.
Right.
Being rich or being poor, being have the ability to bend spoons, or versus having no abilities whatsoever to bend spoons. You can still be a monster. You can stab someone with a knife, no matter what your power set is, and that is the truth of it. And that's the thing that people always have a hard time internalizing. But in this moment, we do get our moment of beaery of the deep, which to me is the selling point of this episode, because they are telling the deep, it's your time to go. And Eagle is poor Eagle. I feel bad for Eagle. He is meant to be Hawkeye, I think. I don't think he's meant to be Green Arrow. He's meant to be Hawkeye. He's meant to be the guy whose powers are cool, but not really, super tier. They're not DC tier. They're a Marvel tier hero. Like in a Marvel universe, he'd be a superhero, He'd be there with his arrows and, Tony
He's Stark. Only a friendly neighborhood superhero.
Exactly. And that's the problem for the Seven and all these people, where the idea has to be something a little more dark and disturbing. And in this moment, the deep gets called, and he comes, and he's got his whale, he's got sharks. And I love the fact that, they're shooting the bullets at them, which have no effect. Because, and Mythbusters showed us this, that if you actually shoot a bullet into the water, it disintegrates almost immediately. Because the friction from the water, and that, like, shooting it straight into the water, straight down, the bullet's fine, but at a diagonal, it has such an increased level of resistance that the bullet basically fragments upon hitting the water.
Oh, fragments?
Oh yeah, well it just basically dissolves. It can't make it like more than 2 feet into the water.
I mean, does it dissolve or does it lose velocity? It literally dissolves, you're saying?
Now you're making me remember that episode.
Huh.
But yeah, basically the point is that after it gets across, that once it enters the water, once it's on that diagonal space, that there's this exponential increase in how on its ability to pierce things. So yeah. So when you can try to shoot it and it just doesn't work.
Right.
So I did like that as a fact that they showed the impotence of it. They showed the whale, and then of course the problem is that, and of course to his own detriment, freaking the deep beaches the whale, which also shows the deep zone. He's always talking about the fish, but it's like, no, he's not,
Right. No, I mean, I think the eventuality that he foresaw in his mind was that he would, get his friends and make the ocean be known for how powerful it is. Look at all he had to give up. He had to marry this woman that he doesn't like so he can get back into the Seven. He said, "Fine, I'll make that sacrifice." Or is that next episode? Or that's this episode?
I think that's next episode. I think next episode is the sex episode. This is the ship episode, so we don't get that until next episode. But
okay, well, he's trying. He's making a lot of sacrifices with them, and he has this moment where he thinks he's going to be able to get back into the Seven. He's going to help out. He's gonna, run into the Seven, and he thinks he's doing good. But God, he just can't help but make bad choices. Sometimes, he's just a screw up.
He is, and I think that's, like I said, that's one of my theories for season 3. Is I imagine that the deep is going to go underwater. He's going to build himself his own Atlantis, and he's going to have a bunch of mind-controlled fishes waiting on him hand and foot. And it's also going to be kind of terrifying for the fishes because they don't have their own will. They're being manipulated by him, and you're actually going to see this dark side to that ability that it's not talking to fishes, it's controlling fishes.
Oh.
Things the fishes wouldn't want to do. But that's my theory. We'll have to see as it plays out. As it does play out in this, he beaches the whale, and Butcher, in his classic sociopathic style, rams the whale, which I don't think would have the effect that they imply it would. They're almost implying that the whale is made of tissue paper. It's like, no, you're ramming this boat into a tank. And so it really doesn't make a lot of sense if you think about the physics of it. But as I had pointed out, this is a thing. As I had pointed out, there is in Sandusky, Ohio, a SeaWorld, but also in Sandusky, Ohio, is a SeaWorld, or is a amusement park called Cedar Point. And in Cedar Point is a pirate ride. It's supposed to be like a knockoff of the Pirates of the Caribbean, but it's like much more low rent. I've never been to Disneyland. I don't know what the actual Pirates of the Caribbean is like, but in the low-rent version, you're riding in your boat, and you go into your boat, and you get swallowed by a whale, and you go past the beating heart of the whale.
Oh, wow.
And to me, the minute they're inside the whale body, and they're seeing all the parts of the whale, I'm thinking, oh, this guy rode the pirate ride at Cedar Point. That is totally taken directly from the pirate ride at Cedar Point. So for those of you who have been to Disneyland or Disney World and have ridden the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, and you can say, no, there actually is a moment where you go inside a whale, feel free to write us and let me know that I'm mistaken. But in my mind, because I don't know, why are pirates whaling? It was always weird when they did it, but they're in there and they're going into the whale. And it's like you go right past this big beating heart, and it's like all illuminated, goes boom, 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 as you're swallowed by the whale. It's very cool. It was a lot of fun. One of my favorite rides as a kid. But anyway, moving right along. I do believe that's why that entire scene is there, by the way. So anyway, they move on. They go into the thing. There is a whole thing about how Huey is the person who keeps Butcher from going too far.
His canary in the coal mine, right?
His canary in the coal mine. And then we do have, in this moment, Butcher saving Huey. Because Huey is caught by the Seven and Starlight is ordered to murder him. And Starlight, because actually Starlight, as soon as she sees Huey, she hits him with a light blast so that he's knocked out. And it looks like she's ready to deal with him. And it's then this back and forth between Homelander pushing her to kill him and her being honestly very reasonable as a hero, saying, I don't want to kill. I'm not a murderer. And then Butcher shows up, and then that's when they have the supervillain throw his hands, bring stuff down on Homelander, and for what it's worth, someone incapacitating him, because we don't see him again. Because it is actually, well, until later, because it is actually Stormfront who goes after him. And that gives us our big reveal on Stormfront, which is that she's a racist, horrible human being, or horrible superhuman. This is our first hints of that, because we got her throughout the whole thing. She's like, oh, sisters, doing it for ourselves, and da-da-da. And, arguably emphasizing that idea of white feminism of, yeah, we're oppressed because we're women and we're going to fight. And then it's like, oh, but we're not going to fight for anybody else but ourselves. So.
Right.
It's the dark side there. I don't want to get into it because I'm a middle-aged white man and it's not my place to say. So that said, we get her essentially casually murdering some people in an apartment complex as she's going after the super terrorist, super whatever, and then saying, I like it when the light goes out in your eyes. And calls him like a yellow-eyed demon or something like that. Basically use a lot of racial slurs. It's not 100% there yet, but we get it. And it is a sad moment. And then
and a mean trick, get us to like this character only to say, oh, look what you like, you like this, and I'm like, yeah, but you made me do it.
Well, it's the reality that what they there's a great thing. I think it was Goering who said it, but it might have been Speer. It might have been Speer who said it when he was on trial and he was basically explaining what it was to be a Nazi. And it says, when the first time I saw Hitler speak, it wasn't about how awful, the Jews were or whatever. It's about how wonderful we were, and maybe we shouldn't feel so bad about ourselves. And, hey, why don't you come and hang out with me? And we're actually good people. And, yeah, we shouldn't be ashamed. We should feel proud. And, we're here. We're German. Get used to it. And then... and then it's like, and everyone who's not is not. And it's like, well, that's when it gets troublesome.
Right.
That's when it goes from pride to Proud Boys. It's like, it's okay to have pride, and it's okay to be a prideful guy. It's wrong to be a proud boy, because if nothing else, the Proud Boy moniker tells you that you're being immature. That it's a pride that comes from immaturity rather than maturity. And there's a pride that is mature, that is tempered with age and wisdom. And there's a proud that is a child's proudness, based only on their limited worldview and their limited understanding of the world. So they telegraphed it. So that's what I'm saying. Anyway, how do you want to end this episode, Mozz? Any final thoughts? Anything that we missed? Talked about a lot. Very little about the show, but we talked about a lot.
No, I think that's part of what it's designed to do, and I think we're paying homage to the intention of art like this by talking about the questions it asks us to talk about, right?
Without a doubt.
But yeah, I think we got to most of it. That and the really interesting thing right at the end where Homelander mentions to everybody, if we catch this guy, he's mine. And Stormfront, of course, decides to dispatch of the super terrorist. And Homelander comes and sees her at the end and says, "Hey, I told you he was mine." And she says, "Hey, you snooze, you lose, Grandpa." And she walks away. Man, she is so good at playing mind games. She's so good at knowing what buttons to turn with every person. Man.
Yes, she does.
So adept at that.
She's very good at her job, and her job is being bad.
Quite a great supervillain. Quite a very good supervillain.
Yeah, and I do have to say I'm not disappointed by how perfectly evil she is.
Right.
Moving right along. Oh, right. I mean, everything about this, it was a great episode. It hit its buttons. It hit its moments. I'm really looking forward. I like the Deep trying to make amends and then getting shot down which is, appropriate because it's like, just because you say you're sorry doesn't mean that it
doesn't mean I don't have to deal with the fallout of it still.
Exactly. You still have to deal with it. And that
if I still have to deal with it, why should you get to let the burden go? Carry it.
Well, exactly. And for what it's worth, I think there is a quality to this that is, like, if you want to get a little bit more complex in it, and the idea that, Starlight very much was a devout religious person.
Right.
And she is having her crisis of faith, but at the end of the day, there is still this idea of a moral rightness and wrongness. And there is this idea that, yes, she doesn't want to forgive someone just because they've apologized, but she wants there to be a penance, It's not enough that you just apologize. It's like, well, what is the penance you've done so far? And, what I think is the dichotomy is that for those who only have had power and have never had that idea of being a servant of that entity, it creates this reality that it's like, you don't understand, like, from the Deep point of view, because you think about, like, a character like Homelander was raised in the lab. Homelander always knew what he was.
Right.
And I think to some extent, the Deep kind of, like, finding out about Compound V, I think that is a shock to them, but for many of them, it was never a shock. As was pointed out, where A-Train is talking about, we never knew. Who knew? What is this? This is shocking. Meanwhile, everyone knows, dude, you were shooting up Compound V last season. We know you know because you were part of the conspiracy. And
might have something to do with, why he got into the Seven? Because many others know about Compound V, right?
Well, that's the thing. It's like, I don't think Maeve did.
Right, okay.
And we know Starlight didn't.
Right.
We don't know about anyone else. We know A-Train did. We know that Homelander did.
And we still don't know what Black Noir's reaction really was to that news yet.
No, was it laughing or was it crying? Or was it laughing while he was crying? There's that emoji where I'm laughing till I'm crying.
Right,
or I'm crying till I'm laughing.
Right.
How many times have we seen some political statement and we laugh till we cry? It's like, oh, it's hilarious. My life's a joke. And that is the reality of being in this situation. Yeah. This was a great episode, I think.
Indeed.
I think this is, we also get, eventually Starlight gets to listen to the messages. And again, Huey kind of shuts her down a bit. It's, no, maybe that's next episode, but yeah, it's a thing. Anyway, talked enough about this. We got another episode to talk about. Mozz, if people would like to talk to you about this episode or anything else, how can they reach you?
Oh, they can email me at mozzmanzoor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzoor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And, of course, while you're doing that, because I forgot to do this, let's talk about our sponsors. Let's talk about tweakedaudio.com. Use the coupon code Southgate. Go there, get good headphones so you actually can hear what the heck me and Mozz are saying. This is good stuff, and you're missing it if you got sub-quality headphones. Likewise, use that exact same coupon code. Use it twice. No one's going to know. Over at Hunted Killer and get a discount on getting an escape room delivered to your house on the process they do. It's once a week, once a month. I don't know. Depends probably a lot on how hard it is for you to solve mysteries. Michelle Gray could use your help. And then, if none of that is interesting, go down to the show notes, click on the Amazon link, go to Amazon, buy anything you want, because it's there on Amazon. And while you're there, check out Pod Life the Book, a book written by and for the Southgate Media Group Network, where people tell you why they podcast, how they podcast, and what they podcast. And then, when you're done with that, come on over back and write to me that old-fashioned email way that Mozz and Poz once did. That's superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. Of course, follow me on the Twitter as I live tweet. I'm hoping Darkwing Duck every Monday at 7. Looking forward to that in the future, but we're going to see if that's what happens. At Charlie Esser, that's CHARLIE. Yes, SCR. Look for the 2 E's in the middle.
For quality. Bing.
Thank you, Mozz. All right, me hearties. Full stream ahead again. Arr!